What is up, YouTube? It's your boy Alex here from Team Generations, and today we're here to discuss not Overlord, but a new Kagero hero. We are going to be talking about Dragonic Lawkeeper. So coming out of Clan Collection Volume 3, we did receive new support for Kagero that actually wasn't centered around Overlord, kind of taking some of the spotlight away from him these past two sets with Seal Dragons previously, as well as Lawkeeper over here. So I'm very excited to kind of go over this deck. I believe that it actually is a really decent deck overall, kind of some interesting choices you can make within the deck, and my deck is probably going to look a little different than most others. I haven't seen too many profiles or lists really on this, but I really think that this defensive interaction as well as some of the offensive capabilities of this deck are really top tier. I think that is actually is a very good deck, and you can get it for relatively cheap, I believe. I don't think there's anything too crazy in here. We'll kind of go over it as we go along, but if you are looking to get into Kagero and don't really have an Overlord kind of deck, can't afford it, whatever the case may be, this is a great alternative with some really nice interactions. So without further ado, let's hop right in. And really quickly before we begin, I just wanted to quickly mention that if you are interested in purchasing any of the cards that you see here today, we do have a TCG player affiliate link down in the description below. You guys know the deal with that. Thank you in advance. Go follow us on Twitter too. We do have a Twitter now, so you can see our local tournament reports, any events that are coming up, maybe interact with us, especially if you're in the metro, like NYC kind of region, Long Island obviously as well. And then lastly, if you are enjoying the content, make sure to leave a thumbs up on the video. More thumbs ups kind of on certain clans. I definitely kind of cater my content towards that. So if this is a clan that you like, definitely drop that thumbs and hit that subscribe button to keep us motivated. Definitely appreciate it. Thank you so much. We're super close to that 1K mark. So without further ado, let's hop right into the big guy now. All right, kicking it off right here, we're going to start off with Dragonic Lawkeeper. So the boss unit of this deck, the new guy, obviously. This guy is really nice because it is interactive on your opponent's turn, something we don't really see too much in Vanguard in general. So I definitely like that. Its skill reads that on auto on Vanguard Circle. At the start of each battle phase, we get to Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1, and for every 3 of yours and your opponent's rearguards, your opponent chooses one of their rearguards and binds it. At the end of the turn, they get that back. They go back to Rearguard Circle from the bind zone, but they don't get the auto abilities from that. And that second skill continues on Vanguard Circle, even on your opponent's turn actually. If your opponent has no back row rearguards, all of your units get 5k. And if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater and they have no rearguards, all of your units get an additional 5k. So the second part of that second skill is more for your turn because they're obviously going to have a rear guard at some point. It's just very hard to make sure that they bind out all of their rear guards in general. But the first part is pretty easy because let's think about it. If we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rear guards here, and then they have just 3 units on their side of the field, they basically have to bind 2 units because we hit the 8, not quite 9. If they did hit 9, it would be even better, but we are basically binding 2 of their units, and they're not going to choose both their front row units. They have to attack with the back row unit. So they're going to bind that back row unit, they're going to bind one of the front row units, and then on top of that, we get that 5k. So all of your shields then get an extra added 5k. So really huge defensively. And again, that activates on each battle phase. So your opponent's battle phase, that includes as well. Don't really use it on our own. You can if they have annoying protect kind of, I guess, protect 2 kind of units or things that can just intercept and almost PG, but very rare, few and far between for that. So I think this deck does really good in force matchups, protect matchups. Excel matchups not as effective overall, but still a very interesting card and really makes your opponent think out how they're going to play this. And it's not your average run-of-the-mill kind of deck. This definitely requires a little bit of thought and timing and pacing. The backup grade 3 over here is going to be Blazing Flare Dragon. Again, this did come back, so I'm very excited for that reprint. Of this retrain over here. But its skill act on Van or Rearguard Circle once per turn. Soul Blast 1 or more cards, and then for each Soul Blast paid for this cost, choose one of your opponent's rearguards and then retire it. So we choose it actually, which is actually huge. And then if this unit is on Vanguard Circle and you paid 5 or more for this cost, your opponent removes all markers from their circles and all protects from their hand. So wow, let's think about that. Your opponent went super wide with Gurgit, whatever it is. Boom, they have a million Excel 2s, take them all away. If they went, late game with Luard, take all their force markers away, take their entire game away, essentially. Same thing with Witches, same thing with, Riviera, Reride, Referade, things like that. So this is just huge against so many different decks. And again, this is a little bit later into the game. You don't really want to ride this guy, but if you have to and just kind of go for that kill turn, you can do that with this guy and just remove their lifeline. And it's an interesting play. It really takes away a lot from some opponents. You're going to see if you ever do go into this and pop that off, it's a good feeling. It's really all their work. They just boom, gone. Also strong against Prism too later in the game when it starts to become hard to guard some of those multi-attacks. Its second skill, auto on Vandal. Rearguard circle, when this guy does attack, we soul charge one, which is huge in Kagero because not a lot of soul charge in this clan in general. If your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater and they have no rearguards, this guy gets 10k until the end of battle. So this on top of your Lawkeeper's 10k sometimes can make this guy absolutely huge. 33k base, let's think about that. You know, let's say you hit one trigger, put that on there, that's 43k base. Boost it with a Lava Flow Dragon, it's an extra 13k booster there, plus, you know, another 10k on that. That could be easily like a 50, what is that, 56, 66, whatever it is. Like huge columns, and just becomes really hard to guard unless they have PGs. So love this card. Think it's an absolute no-brainer to put this in at a 4 of, and it just synergizes so well with both Lawkeeper and another card too, surprisingly, over here. This is something that I had to test out. When I was testing just those grade 3s, I found that there was kind of like something off. There was a little bit of a tempo mishap once in a while. Like I wasn't ready to go into Lawkeeper, wasn't ready to quite go into Blazing Flare either, and like just take away their markers or whatever. So I actually thought this was a decent add to the deck, and believe me when I say this, I have tested this. This is, you know, going to be a little bit different than everyone else's list. Not everyone will agree with this, but I think this is actually a really good either first ride or backup ride. So this is Dragonic Blademaster Soin, older card now, came out. It's kind of crazy to say this is an older card now, but this guy's skill continues on Vanguard Circle during your turn. If your opponent has no rear guards, this guy and all of your vision tokens get 10k. So again, little self power buff is never bad. And act on Vanguard Circle once per turn. Discard 2 cards from your hand, call a vision token to rearguard circle, and at the end of that turn, retire all of your tokens. If Wyvern Strike Doha and Wyvern Strike Garen are both on your rearguard circle, retire all of your opponent's rearguards. So if they went wide early, tried to pressure you, you can go into this guy, get rid of their board. I think it's the right play. Again, this is just a pacing option. You have to feel out the matchup. You have to know if this is right for you. And naturally, you do run Doha and Garen anyway in this deck. It just helps with the field spam to get your rearguard count up, to get Dragonic Lawmaster's bind off. So I figured, you know, let me just try this in here, and I really do think it is a decent play overall. Definitely helps with the tempo. Is it going to win you the games? Probably not, but it can filter some bad cards out from your hand and maybe get you some extra shield that you weren't expecting, put a little bit pressure onto your opponent. These both synergize well with Force 2, they both synergize well with Blazing Flare Dragon, and they also we have a couple other cards in here too that really do kind of go along the same support line. So I figured, you know what, why not blend them up a little bit? And I really do like the results. It gives us like a decent backup if we're not ready for like a Blazing Flare turn, let's say. Next up over here, moving right along into the grade 2s. Like I said, we are running the Doha Garen package for Doha over here just because it is the Searcher, Counterblast 1, and then search your deck when placed from hand for a Garen call to rearguard circle, and they both get effects off of each other. And then if this is boosted by that, during the battle attack, if your opponent has no rearguards, your opponent cannot call normal units to Guardian Circle. So decent card. Again, really there for the search and just the body count overall, but could also help for the Blademaster play. Next up then, we are looking at the grade 2. We are looking at Torrid Cannon Dragon at a 3 of. So Torrid's okay. Not really useful to put a normal card back. Like we're not looking to really put anything back like the Dragonic Overlord the end or whatever, but at the same time could net us a draw when our hand is a little bit thin. It is a decent Vanguard ride overall. We are retiring something from our opponent's field, which can be helpful. We don't use like a ton of Counterblast in this deck, I would say. We use like a healthy amount, but enough that we can kind of fit some space in here for that. So I like this guy at a 3 of. It's not like the most necessary card. It's not like your absolute win con or anything, but it is decent overall. Next up, this was, I believe, a promo card that did get reprinted. I'm not 100% sure. I think it was a promo card, but this is going to be Dragon Dancer Fremma. So Fremma is really interesting because it does synergize with both the Lawkeeper and the Blademaster. In that auto on when this unit is placed on rearguard circle during your turn if you have 2 or more grade 3 rearguards. So again, both synergizing just fine. Soul Blast 1, retire all of your opponent's rearguard in the same column as this unit, and if you did not retire 2 or more, we get to draw a card. So a Soul Blast for a draw a card is not bad at all. Definitely think that's worth it. And then if your opponent has 1 or less rearguard, this guy gets boost. So again, becoming a 10k booster, and if it has another 10k from your Lawkeeper, that's a 20k booster. Could just be solid overall. I really do like this card. I think that at a 2 of, it's just fine. It's good for like a little bit later into the game, I would say, and yeah, it has its role for sure. Next card up over here is the Tech Slot. You can kind of turn this into another grade 1, which I'll show you later, but I actually kind of like this. I think it applies a lot of gets a lot of power by itself, and again synergizes with the deck really well. Dragon Knight Fahim. So Fahim continues on rearguard circle during your turn. If you have a grade 3 rearguard, this guy gets 10,000. Just simple, easy. Dragonic Blade. Oh my god, I can't even speak now. Lawkeeper over here plus this. its own 10k, nets you like 30k base. Boosted again can bring you well over that 50k threshold like really easily, making hard numbers to guard. And again, just solid unit. It can intercept if you need to, can clear itself out. If you don't see it, it's not the end of the world. If you do see it, it's pretty good. And wow, that actually kind of, that flows into each other. I didn't even notice that over there, I guess the way I just put it, but that is actually a really funny continuation of the art. So just one of him. You can also replace it for one extra one of this guy. I'm only running this at, moving into the grade ones, I should say. I'm only running this at a 3 of Dragon Knight He-Shot. He-Shot is good. I feel like later in the game, I don't want to be using too many Soul Blasts on other rear guards aside from Blaze Flare Dragon, but its main skill is that when it's roared upon, look at 5 cards from the top of your deck, reveal up to 1 grade 3 or greater card from among them, put it into your hand, and then shuffle your deck. So we are so grade 3 reliant in this deck. We need to have those as soon as we can, and its first skill is decent. 1 place, CB1, Soul Blast 1, draw a card, choose one of your opponent's back row rear guards, and retire it. So it's okay. It's not the greatest. Don't really want to be using that. You can avoid it when you can, but overall, very decent card, and I think that kind of searching definitely helps us out a lot. Speaking of searching over here, just running along that same line of thought, one of them is proxied right now. I have it on the way. I have so many Kagero decks, and I really don't like to kind of break them up and split them up, so I just tried collecting a bunch of it, but this is going to be Lava Flow Dragon. So this guy is the top 5 searcher. Again, just one place on Van or rear, search the top 5, add a grade 3 to hand. If you added a card, you ditch a card from your hand. Really nice. And then the second skill, the during your turn, if you have more rear guards than your opponent, this guy gets an additional 5k. So it's super easy to do in this deck. As you can see, everything kind of retires. Big consistency play there. And then over here, since we are retiring so much, and you know, we do use Counterblast in this deck, I think that this card is decent as well. This is going to be Flame of Hope Erma, kind of like a solid staple in most, not all of them, but most Kagero decks, especially ones that aren't really Overlord at this point. But during the battle that it boosted, this guy gets an additional 3k, and then its second skill, auto, when your opponent's rear guard is retired during your turn, you get to retire this unit, draw a card, and countercharge 1. So doing a lot for us, which is decent. I know the retire this guy sucks, but we're retiring during the main phase, so you can, you know, draw, get something else out of this over here, maybe replace it with the Lava Flow to get a higher boost or whatever. So I think the counter charge at certain times is pretty key. The extra draw, there's a little bit of a filter, is good as well. So running that at a 4 of. And then lastly, just running 2 of these. Maybe I would bump this to 3, maybe bump down an Airmo. That's like my biggest question mark in the deck, because sometimes I see these too much, too often, and I can't search them out and deck them a little bit later. But this is going to be Wyvern Strike Garen. So again, this pairs with the Doha, this pairs with the Blade Master. Really, really nice overall. During your turn, continues on rearguard circle. If your opponent has no rear guards, this guy gets an additional 5k. And then when it attacks, when the attack at boosted Wyvern Strike Doha hits, Counterblast 1, draw a card, Soul Charge 1. So again, you can go into Airmo, pop that off, draw a card, do the counter charge. So you have a counterblast open for this guy over here, and soul charging helps in this deck a lot too. So, you know, maybe you do want to go into that Blaze Flare and just nuke your opponent's markers. You definitely can do that. So just 2 is fine for right now. I might up that to 3. Now let's pan out over here and get into the triggers. Alright, kicking us off over here with the grade 3 Heal Guardian. I wish I had all of them, but I will say over here, and let's just do this over here so it doesn't have any glare. I just have one of these extra. I wasn't swapping again between all of my different decks. I definitely could swap them in if I wanted to, but you're essentially, you know, most of the time getting that extra 5k on your Vanguard from the Lawkeeper's skill defensively. So you can run these, but the 20k shields aren't bad either. Like, this is a deck that really wants to make it longer into the game, and I don't think it has an issue really doing that. It has a good early game presence as well. So I think that you can go either way. You know, you could do like a 2-2 split. You can run a little bit less. I think a lot of the big decks that like rushed us down earlier kind of gone in the meta. I don't want to misspeak. You know, somebody will call me, I know, what about this deck in the comments? I totally know it, but you know, you can run the 20k shield, especially if you don't have access to these cards, a little bit too expensive, whatever the case might be. But then like I said, we do want to survive the late game, and I think by adding more draws in here, we kind of do that, and we're so key piece reliant in this deck. I think that adding the extra draws really do help us search that out. So 4 of the PGs, 2 of the extra draws over here, and that leaves us with 6 crit overall then. So obviously a starter too. I always like Undu. I got always the hollow. I got a bunch of these over here, hollow full arts, but never forget your starter like I do in my videos. But overall, solid pressure, solid advantage gaining. And again, you can go either way with the Heal Guardians. It doesn't really matter too much. Try it out, see what you like, test it out. That's definitely the biggest question mark in the deck at the moment. But cool, let's hop into a test hand. I'll show you guys how the deck plays out. Alright, just going to shuffle over here and get started. Overall, really decent deck. I actually have like a ton of fun with this deck. It's something different, something interactive. It's not, you know, just Overlord swing, 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 which is pretty nice. Oops, sorry, I'm going to move those wires around over here. See a little bit better. I really do enjoy this deck, and I think that a lot of people should try it out. Like, you probably have a lot of these cards sitting around. The Lawkeeper, the Blazing Flare, as of right now, are just super cheap. So, Really not a bad thing to pick up at all. So let's draw 5 over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There we go, there's 5. All right, so we do have our 1, 2, 3. We don't have our Lawkeeper, but I'm just gonna put the 1 heal back. Should be good otherwise. Let's see, draw. All right, so that's okay. Rather heal in deck anyway. There we go. All right, going to stand and draw. We're gonna pretend we go first like we do in all of our test hand videos. And I'm actually gonna ride the he shot first. I'm going to draw. And then I'm going to pass it over to my opponent. Let's take a damage for their turn. Boom. Critical. Let's say that shuts everything off. We are now going to stand and draw for our turn. And we do have 2 options now to ride into. Which one do I kind of want to go for? I think I'm going to go for... Do I have a Doha in hand? No, I don't actually. It depends. If you think that they're going to flood their board and kind of press, I would ride him. If not, let's say we're going to ride her. So I think I'm just going to say they're not going to press, so I'm going to ride her right here. I'm going to also activate He Shot skill when rodent upon. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's put that 6 card back. Let's see, top 5. We do get the Lawkeeper, nice. So let's shuffle our deck and put that back. So things are pretty smooth so far. And again, you know, just because I didn't see the Lawkeeper in my original hand doesn't mean like, you know, my whole game plan is kind of out the window. So decent overall. And we are going first, and sometimes I don't want to go first with the Lawkeeper. It just feels better to kind of go second. So let's pop this. I mean, it's a split decision, because if you think they're going to flood you out and, you know, it's a 4-stack or whatever, they're going to get really powerful really quickly. The Counterblast, Soul Blast for that bind scenario is really decent, but let's pass it over to, or no, let's actually swing first over here, because I'm not going to rush them anymore. Power draw. Whoops, what am I doing over here? I'm getting all confused. But yeah, let's go into their turn. They're going to deal us 1 damage. Boom, power draw again. Wow. Deja vu right there. We are now going to go into our turn, and let's ride up. I don't know, depends what I want to do at this point. I could go for a pretty decent turn either way, but let's, you know, this is a Lawkeeper profile. Let's just go into Lawkeeper right here. I'm going to go Force 2, and I'm going to put that on my Vanguard circle. I'm just going to proxy my Force markers. Forgot to bring them over here. So that is a Force marker now. And just because we get pretty powerful overall with our numbers, let's go over here. There we are, and now we could let's put this behind him, let's say, and let's look at the top 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's add this guy Lawkeeper over here, because we definitely want to re-ride in this deck. And you know what? We're just going to toss the Blade Master, because I don't think that was the right tempo call here. They didn't flood us out early. I didn't really need to wait for any of my key pieces. So I think that I'm just going to ditch that guy. Anything else less worthy? No, let's just ditch him. Okay. We are then going to place down, unfortunately, we don't get the Garen, but we are going to place him down. Let's put the He Shot behind him just to give him a little more boost. There we are, and they have no rear guards, let's just assume, or, you know, we can Soul Blast 1 if we really want. Let's say they had 1 rear guard out there. Boom, just Soul Blasted 1, just got rid of it. That's fine. I feel like that's a typical kind of pacing play there. So during our turn, we have grade 3 greater rear guard. This guy gets 10k, this guy over here, cool. So let's go. Opponent has no rear guards, he gets a 5k buff. This is just 18, but overall, decent pressure. And we're not going to activate this skill because they don't have rear guards at that moment. So we're going to go first check, second check. Boom, nothing. Okay, used up all of our luck defensively, it looks like. And then we are going to go into, let's say it's 10, 20, this is 25, 25 plus 13, then this is 38. Alone is just a pretty big number. That's hard to guard. If they didn't hit like a you know, defensive trigger or whatever, that's at least 2 big triggers from hand. Could really help us set up for next turn. And then boom, it's going to be 13 plus that's actually 18 plus, this is going to be 18 naturally. And then they have no rear guards. They're not grade 3 or greater, so it doesn't get that 10k. So this is 18, which is 36, I believe. That's the only thing going on there. We are going to soul charge over here for his skill, though. And again, 36. So these are nice numbers coming right off the bat. Pretty passively, didn't have to commit like a whole lot. We have some decent shield in our hand as well. So let's pass it over to our opponent. Let's see how this would kind of play out. So let's enter their battle phase and let's actually activate this. So we have 1, 2, 3, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's say they have 1, 2, 3. So they have 7 overall. So what I'm going to do is Counterblast, Soul Blast 1. And boom, if they didn't commit a lot of cards to field, I just made them retire or bind 2 of their rear guards out. So they only have like 1 rear guard attacking. I'm going to eat their Vanguard swing. It's whatever. 1, let's say they hit a crit. 2, all right, that's Lava Flow. Sorry about the proxy. So I'm at 4 damage now over here. But again, I just have 1 rear guard to contend with. I'm just going to block that right there. All right, that's fine. And they're going to pass it back to me. Their bind units come back. No big deal. They're just targets for me to retire this turn. So now I'm going to stand and drop. And again, too, I could just block with that 15k shield, because if they didn't have any back row rear guards, this guy gets an additional 10k because they're on grade 3, 23k base, 38 right there with that guard. So I am going to go into him right here, and let's go get another force 2. Let's put that right here. It's up to you if you want to commit and actually put this guy down on rear. It's no big deal. If you want to hold it in hand, could be fodder. I think that the 10k buff is decent. He gets his own 10k buff, but you know what? Let's just go maximum power. This might be a foolish move, but I just want to kind of demonstrate the numbers over here, but we are going to go into it, and let's put something. Do we have something to boost? Yeah, we do. Unfortunate, but let's just boost him with that. So let's go. This is going to be all of my units get 10k now. So this is 10k. This is 23 plus 18 now. 23 plus 18, what is that? That is going to be, what is that, 40 something, whatever it is. Swing in, 1, oops, 2, okay. No offensive drives over here, really working out for us, but that's okay. Let's go over here, let's put a little bit more pressure on. Let's say they're at like 4 damage, you know, swing with this guy. Skill, soul charge 1 over here. We are then going to be 10k from himself, 10k from him. That is going to be 33k plus 23k, so that is 56 over here because he's 13 plus the 10 from that guy. Yeah, so that is really actually huge. And then lastly, swinging in over here again, that is going to be 56 again, soul charge. And if we had another one in hand and we really wanted to get rid of their markers next turn, like, it's not wrong to go into that blazing flare there. It could be actually a decent choice. But again, we flooded our field. Their field should have a couple of units. We're going to pop a bunch of their stuff, really just cripple them defensively over and over and make it tough. You know, we really want to get that extra 10k on our opponent's turn. And I think that this deck can definitely survive and play against a lot of the top tier meta decks in the meta right now. Like, it's hard to play against this. It's like a weird play style. It's very rogue. It has that rogue kind of thing going for it. So I personally really do like it, and I hope you guys enjoyed the video today. If you did, make sure to leave that thumbs up button. This is Alex from Team Generations signing out.